Time keeps on leaving and we keep on moving. When do we pass on our wisdom to the youth? My veteran story, lost arts discussions, fireside chats with a bourbon or two. It's time to hear the stories by military veterans. Get yourself ready. It's the Lost Arts Podcast. The Lost Arts with Andrew Cox. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Podcast. That podcast giving a voice to our veterans. On today's episode, we're going to have a fireside chat. We got the fireside chat crew here, and then we also have a special guest, Brandon from Custom Canine Unlimited. He's going to talk to us a little bit about what they do there and just kind of walk us through everything they got going on. So I'm very excited to hear about that. We're also, after that, going to talk a little bit about the lost art of just being a kid. And we're going to get into that some as well. But with that, I got the crew here. We're going to go round robin, just see how everybody's doing. We'll start with Mark. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing outstanding. Another beautiful day in sunny Southern California.
Nice. Yeah. I've heard California so many times after you said that. I don't know if you're making it popular or what the deal is, but I've heard it several times after hearing it from you. Very good. Mike, how you doing?
Doing good. It was a long week. Worked all weekend, so just tired.
Yeah. Well,
But other than
hopefully it
that,
gets a little bit
I
better.
can't complain. I can't complain.
That's good. I like it. All right, Krista, how about you?
I thought I was doing all right until I realized that I didn't know the difference between a scroll saw, a bandsaw, and a jigsaw when doing my woodworking. So I failed at being a woman of the Craftsman Club all these years after 34 years of marriage that I just didn't know what that was. So I really screwed up in being a member of the Craftsman Club and not having a scroll saw for my husband. So I'm going to have to really step up my game in the next 30 years, so
Wow.
other than that, I'm really
Yeah.
great.
Very nice. Well, it's good to know. Knowing is half the battle, G.I. Joe, Great American Hero, right? So at least you know now. So
Thought I knew what a
that's
scroll saw was, but I didn't. So
yeah. All
it's
right.
been rectified today. So
Well, there you go. Can't beat it.
yeah.
All right, Vic, how are you doing?
I am well. Had a good weekend, so life's good. Today's cigar is a limited edition cigar. This is a Viaje Zombie Antidote. It was actually meant for Chinese consumption only, but back in 2014, they started releasing limited editions, limited batches into the U.S. This is an all Nicaraguan wrapper, binder, and filler. So it should be a pretty smooth, maybe even creamy cigar. But at the end of the podcast, I'll finish my review.
That sounds great. Thanks, Vic. All right. Hey, we got our special guest here, Brandon Martin. He's one of the trainers there at Custom Canine Unlimited out of Georgia. And I got your information, the business information from a gentleman that was on the podcast before. So I just kind of reached out, and thankfully you volunteered to come on and kind of talk to us a little bit and tell us what you got going on there. So first off, welcome, Brandon. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. I can't complain. It's a beautiful Sunday. Then thanks for having me on. I'm glad you were able to get a hold of somebody and get us out there, or get a hold of us and get me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, why don't you kind of talk to us a little bit about the whole business, what you got going on, and kind of walk us through some of those details.
Yeah. So we are, our Custom Canine Unlimited is a dog training boarding facility. Our main business is training, military working dogs, police working dogs, personal protection working dogs. And so that's really the basics of what we do is train dogs. We are a veteran GI Bill, if you will, approved organization. And so what that looks like is we bring in veterans to do either a training course or a dog handler course to where they're learning how to either train dogs the way that we train them, or they're learning how to handle dogs in the working dog industry. You can do both of those all, if you've got the GI Bill for it, it's not like a one and done kind of thing. You can do both. We also offer like some kennel master courses and things like that because kennels are, keeping the dogs healthy and homed properly is just as important as training them and handling them. And then, so, that's a lot of our big focus is training military working dogs, as well as for law enforcement. But we also do some pets and we kind of specialize in aggressive dogs. But we do pets as well.
Wow, that's really awesome. Hey, and you were telling me, an Army veteran yourself, and you kind of stumbled upon Canine Unlimited there, and just kind of locked into that job and that position that you got going on there. Why don't you talk us a little bit about how that happened?
Yeah, you know, I, since I've gotten out of military, I've kind of tried to struggle to find what I wanted to do when I grew up. And so, and I'm sure, many of us have had the same struggles. So, when I was kind of having some issues with my last job and I was like, I need to find something else to do. I don't want to do this anymore. And I was just looking at schools to go through. My wife is a veteran as well, and she was in cosmetology school, using her GI Bill. And I was like, let me use my GI Bill and see if I can find some kind of school to go to. And I actually found it on like the GI comparison tool that you can go on, Google and look up. And I stumbled across Custom Canine Unlimited, and I was like, what is this? And I started looking into it. I got on all their social media. And that was probably in like October of last year. And then in December, I was like, all right, I'm going to school. And my original plan was to go to school, and then, do the training side of things and then go into the handling side of things as well. But, within like probably like 2 or 3 weeks into the trainer course that I was already, that I had started, they were like, hey, we've got this job opportunity. We like having you around, and if you're interested, we'd like to offer you a job. And so I took that job, and I've been there, going on 6 months now.
Very nice. So kind of talk us through a little bit of talk about the courses themselves. So if I'm a veteran and I'm going to go in and check out this course, what am I going to actually learn? Kind of what's going on in that whole thing for each course?
Yeah, and so if you're like you were saying, if you're a veteran and you decide that you're going to come through, and we do handler courses for police officers as well. You don't necessarily have to be a veteran. Your police agency can pay for those courses as well. But a good majority of what we do bring in is veterans. So you're a veteran, you've decided, hey, I want to go through Custom Canine Unlimited for the trainer course. We'll start there. The full service trainer course is an 8-week course. You're going to come in, and it's 320 hours total. You're going to come in and you're basically we're going to start giving you the tools, starting with kennels. Basically, you're going to learn the gist of how kennels run. You're not getting too in depth like the kennel master course. You're going to get the understanding of how the kennels work, how, important it is to feed your dog first, to start, and bathing and grooming and things like that. And then you're going to get into, the nuts and bolts of training dogs. And we train apprehension dogs, which is like a bite dog. We train drug detection dogs. We train explosive detection dogs, as well as tracking dogs. And then we've even trained, and this is going to sound crazy, we've trained dogs to detect peanuts for people with food allergies.
Wow.
You can also, I mean, you can train a dog to do just about anything. So electronic devices, because in certain jails and things like that, they're not allowed to have those. So it's, being able to detect those electronic devices. You can train a dog to do all that stuff. So during that 8-week course, you're going to get kind of a grasp. You're not going to master it, but you're going to get a grasp. We're going to give you the tools to work through the basics of tracking, drug, obedience, explosives, bite, patrol dogs, bite work. You're going to get to wear a bite suit. You're going to get bitten a bunch.
Very nice.
And so that's basically what that 8 weeks looks like is 8 weeks of 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and just work. It's a hands-on course. So you're constantly working a dog. And then the handler course, depending on what course you go through, there's a tracking only course, there's a drug and tracking only course, there's explosives and tracking, and then there's a full service handler course, which is like explosives or drug tracking and a bite dog. And
Oh, wow.
so you'll basically go through the 6 weeks for that course, and that's a 6-week course where you're learning how to handle a dog. So you get assigned a dog, that dog is donated to you, and then that's the only dog you take care of. That's the only dog you do kennel maintenance on for 6 weeks, and you're learning how to work him in. He's already on odor, so he's already able to detect narcotics, or he's able to detect explosives. He's already able to do some tracking. You're going to finish the dog off and then start learning how to work him in the working dog world. And then at the end of that 6 weeks, there's a certification that we have as well. And you would go through that certification. You become nationally certified through CCU, Custom Canine Unlimited. And that then affords you the opportunity to start working.
Very cool. And now, what types of, I mean, other than law enforcement, those types of things, but what is typically the individuals that you see the most coming through and taking these courses?
A lot of times, it's the trainer side of things. A lot of guys are coming through. They just want to be a trainer, learn how to do the dog training thing. In my experience, a lot of the guys want to go and open their own kennel. That's kind of their goal, or just start the training, their training journey. But then on the handler side of things, there's still quite a few of those guys. A lot of guys do both. And a lot of times they're coming through for explosives handler courses because they want to go back overseas and do something along those lines.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Does anybody have any questions for Brandon? I know, Vic, I saw you unmuting a second ago, but I didn't know if you had a question or not.
Yeah, so you touched briefly on the dogs. You said they're donated. So like if somebody comes and they take your course, are they walking away with the dog, or are you just giving them a dog to train? Or can they bring their own dog?
So with coming through the handler course, if you were to say, hey, I want to come through the handler course, the VA is going to pay for my course, you'll come in and you're assigned a dog, and then that dog, pending the completion of your course, is then donated to you. So that way you're able to, and that's the dog you would certify with. That way you're able to then go out into the community, into the working dog community, and you're a little more employable because you now have a finished dog.
Wow, that's really cool. And now, who is doing the donations? Is this something that you guys get, like people donate to you money, and then you guys purchase the dogs, or how does that work?
Well, so it is not. Let me think. I'm trying to, we buy all of our dogs. They're all trained for a specific task. The VA will not buy a dog. So included in your course is the dog donation. So we are donating the dog from our, the dogs that we have in the facility.
Yeah, that makes sense. Wow, that's
People
really
ever
cool.
bring a dog with them?
So from time to time, especially like our law enforcement officers, they'll come through with a dog that's already been trained. And that's typically that happens a lot with our law enforcement officers coming through our handler courses. The dog is already, whether it's a narcotics dog, a tracking, or a patrol dog, it's already doing all of those things, and we're just going to teach that handler how to do those things, and then certify the two of them as a canine team towards the end of their, at the end of their course.
Wow, that's really cool. All right. Let's see. What else could you tell us about the organization and types of things that you guys got going on? I know you said you were getting the dogs earlier as we were talking. You get them locally, and you also get them like overseas or whatever. And then what types of dogs do you typically work with?
Yeah. So right now our main breeder is out of Mexico. That's the main person we get our dogs from is a breeder out of Mexico. The majority of what we get, we always try to cater to the needs of the individuals coming in. Prior to us, if you were to come through our handler course, for example, we're going to have a conversation with you before you even get here. Hey, what are you looking to do with this handler course? What kind of work are you trying to get out of it? We're going to ask all those questions before you get here so that we can make sure we have the right kind of dog for you. Same goes for law enforcement. Some law enforcement agencies send us a handler and they're buying a dog from us all at the same time. And so if we're sending, we got to figure out what kind of dog they want, what kind of handler they have. And so the kind of dogs we get really depends. A lot of what we get is Belgian Malinois. We do get some Dutch Shepherds and German Shepherds from time to time, as well as labs. Like I have a gentleman who just came through our handler course. He's from up north in the New York area, and he does explosives work. Well, he wants a little bit more of a friendly looking dog, if you will. So we got a chocolate lab. He was said, hey, I want a chocolate lab. It's better for PR, and it makes me a little bit more employable. And so, it really just depends. A lot of our law enforcement agencies, if they're getting an apprehension or a bite dog, they want, a Belgian Malinois, just because of their agility and how agile they are, athleticism, all those things. And then they're incredibly intelligent as well. Most of our dogs are bought from Mexico. Every now and then we will get dogs that are donated. Hey, I got this Belgian Malinois and I can't handle it because I didn't realize that they were a Tasmanian devil that I'm trying to lock inside of my house. And so people will then donate them.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. Those dogs are not necessarily easy to handle, and I wouldn't be able to. I got an English bulldog, and he runs all over me, so I couldn't handle it. Could you tell me a little bit about the physicality part of the courses themselves? I know you were talking about the bite dogs and getting in the suits and those types of things. For anybody that's looking at the possibility of going and everything, what are the limitations that you see?
So some of the biggest limitations that I would say that I've ran into that, I mean, they're working dogs. They don't care. That's kind of like one of our things is, hey, look, you might be tired, but this dog ain't, and it doesn't care that you're tired. And that sounds a little harsh. But the majority of what we're working with is veterans. Me and the head trainer, we're both veterans. And so, that's just kind of our mentality. Like these dogs don't care. I have one of the gentlemen that I just graduated from my course, will be 60 in September. And if you saw him, he is the most physically fit 60-year-old I've ever seen in my entire life. However, he had some asthma issues, and that would kind of slow him down throughout things. So, a lot of times, and this is a little harsh, and I'm sorry. A lot of times, veterans get out of the military and stop waking up every day to do PT, and so they pack on a few extra pounds, and then they'll come through our course and realize that we're running tracks. In the Georgia summer is rough. Getting in that bite suit in 80, 90-degree weather in the middle of summer is rough. You're fighting a dog in thicker clothes than you were already wearing. So, you'll kind of run into some of those people being a little out of shape. And then I guess like with my older guys, just not being fully prepared physically. Because uh it is a workout every day, regardless of, I'm not just taking a dog on a walk. This dog is trying to pull my arm off to get to whatever's at the end of that track. And you're running through the woods and chasing down people when you're biting them and things like that. And then you're also in the bite suit, you're fighting a dog the whole time. So
Wow.
there's definitely a physical, it's definitely not it's not sitting behind a desk.
It's not sitting here doing a podcast like I do now. And, so a little bit different. I like it. Anybody? Yeah, go ahead, Vic.
So, what's the typical age of the dogs going through your program?
Typically we try not to get dogs that are we try to get them anywhere from a year to at no more than 3 years. We don't like to sell dogs that are over 4. And that's just because, you start looking at longevity of their career after that. And they're not going to have very long after, some of these dogs maybe live to 10, they're retiring at 8, depending on the department, things like that. So, you kind of run into some of those issues. But typically anywhere from a year to 36 months is where we like to try and keep our dogs.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, when you get them at the year mark, does anybody work with them before then? Like whenever you get them, or?
During the very early stages of their life, there's some critical development periods that they have to go through, that breeder has already kind of worked through a lot of those socialization problems and socializing, and then they start to do a little bit of bite work and things like that. But they are, very, very minimal when it comes to that kind of stuff. So for the most part, they're green, with, just a hint of whether it be bite work or a little bit of obedience, things like that from time to time.
Right, right. Well, so I know we were talking earlier. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, so I know that you can't have like 100% success rate for the dogs. I mean, some of the dogs probably can't make it through the course either. What do you do with them? I mean, I'm sure by that, even if they wash out of those highly uh, training things, like the bites and the smells, you probably still have a very well trained, obedient dog. So what do you do with those dogs that don't make it?
So when it comes to us buying a dog, we try our best to do, there's a pretty lengthy evaluation process that we do before we even consider buying a dog. And so we actually are going to test all of those things, and there's still the outliers that are going to happen. But we really try to get a good grasp on different, drives that the dogs have in order to determine whether or not we're going to be able to train them for the task specifically that we're going to buy them for. For example, if we're going to buy a patrol dog, a bite dog, we want to make sure that the dog has the drives to be a bite dog. Otherwise, we end up with a dog that's just, we paid bite dog money for, but he's only a
Yeah.
only a drug and tracking dog. And so, there's the risk of losing money there. So we always try to do a thorough evaluation of the dogs before we even bring them into the facility, just to ensure that, we're getting our money's worth out of them. And then, for instance, a dog does come in and say it was even a donated dog that we didn't buy. And we're going to test that dog still, and we're going to see the best avenue that dog has to be successful in the working line. And so if we bring in a dog and he doesn't have the bite work, he doesn't have the drive to be a bite dog. He's just, not committed to it, he has no desire to engage with that bite sleeve or that bite suit, we're going to just, okay, hey, look, he's not a bite dog, but we can still do drug and tracking with him, or we can still do drug with him. And so we'll just kind of steer them in that direction. All right, that's fine. We won't sell him as a bite dog. We'll just sell him as a drug and tracking dog. So we really try our best not to have dogs wash out completely. There has been a couple dogs come in that just did not, they were donated and did not have it. And so they just became very obedient dogs and we sold them as pets.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Whoever ended up with the dog after that, very obedient dog. So that's that's a positive. Mike, did you have something?
Well, I had, I was just sitting there trying to jot stuff down on my phone real quick in my, Micanese shorthand so I could understand it later. But, Vic had asked some of the questions, I think it was Vic, breeds and stuff like that. And Mark kind of asked a question about, what is the pass fail rate? I hate to say washout when it comes to a dog. Comes to a human, I'll say, yeah, you fucking failed. But I hate to say it with that. But it's what is as far as well, another question. I'm actually before I ask what I was going to ask, I hate to even ask it. It may not be something you're comfortable with talking about on the podcast, but what what is the cost of a dog like that?
You
It may
know,
not be something you can talk about, and that's fine if you can. I was just curious, honestly.
it really depends what you're trying to get into, whether it's a personal protection dog, a drug dog, specifically a drug dog, specifically an explosives dog. The pricing definitely does range for those things. With that being said, I know that there's a huge range that those that can cost. I don't know, to be
Yeah,
100% honest with you. It's not that I wouldn't share that information. I don't know what that would cost. Mainly because that's not really. I know what we would buy dogs for,
yeah.
but I don't know what we would sell them for. I haven't really had a really reason to ask that question, or
Oh, I get it.
it's
Yeah.
not my avenue. I
Well,
just think,
it's like I was told on my job, stay in your lane and do what you're good at. I'm like,
right.
okay.
And I'm good at training dogs, and I'm good at training them, and that's kind of
Yeah,
exactly. I'll stick to that.
yeah. But the other thing, not even on the dog part of it, but as far as the handlers and people that come in, what is your pass fail rate or success rate with that?
You
Because like
know,
you were saying, as far as physical fitness, or we're all human, and you look at Andrew, he definitely quit PTing a long time ago,
Yeah, it's
so
true statement. I'll accept
yeah.
it. It's okay. All right.
He had to
We'll
get
keep
reclining
talking.
seats in his RV so he could get further from the steering wheel, but his arms keep getting shorter. I don't know what that's all about, but
Man, at least you're not talking about my awning right now. So there's that.
yeah. Well, I didn't say anything about that. You brought it up.
Yeah. Whatever.
But no, I mean, is there, I'm sure there's got to be it's like anything. There's, a pass fail.
of course, and we do our best to, if you come through and you're not getting it, we try to be as, for lack of better terms, remedial as possible. Some of the physical fitness thing aspects of it, you know, there are some things that, the dogs don't care about your physical fitness, but um, if you're sucking, for lack of better terms, while we're in the bite suit, we can kind of shorten some sets up, and we can work with veterans, or you can work with people, because we do understand that people are not always going to be in the best shape and things like that, and our goal is not to fail people. I have been here for 6 months, and I have had, I'm trying to think, 4 classes, probably 8 to 10 students, just as myself, and then the schools probably had closer to 20 with handlers, and I've only seen 2 people fail. So I mean, it's not super high fail rate, but it does happen. Some of it is lack of their own motivation, or some of them is just they just can't get it. Um, you know, we typically are fall to our own devices. And so, I've had a couple people, or I've had a student that was just like, hey, I can't do this. So um I don't necessarily want to call that a fail. I want to call that a quit. But yeah, I still would count that as a fail. So I
Yeah,
would say,
because to me, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no,
Go
you're
ahead.
good. I'd say two of them in the last 6 months that I've seen fail.
Because I would think at that point, when you have dogs like that that are being trained like that, the amount of effort, the money it's going into them, what they're going to be doing, that dog probably, it has to depend as much on the handler as the handler's depending on them. And I know you keep saying, that dog's not tired. Oh, it needs as a reward or its chewy toy, and hey, let's get back to it. That's what and I would assume that's got to be a big push for most people, or at least even from you guys as instructors and handlers also, that you want that dog to have the best possible chance to succeed just as much as you want that handler to have as much chance to succeed with that dog. At least that's how I would look at it, but I don't know.
Well, and so you gotta one of the biggest things about or one of the biggest things with us is our handlers that come through. During the trainer course, if there's 3 or 4 trainers, 1 trainer or 2 trainers can pick up the slack for another trainer. And I know that that sounds kind of like a cop out, but it is, dogs still have to get trained at the end of the day. And you kind of can see that, one student's doing a little bit more of the work. It shows on evaluations, it shows on tests, but it's all, you're going to get what you put in out of it. And so you'll see some of those trainer students specifically. I'll have 3 trainer students, and 2 of them are doing the majority of the work, and you can kind of see that third one, lack of better term, sucking in certain areas. But when it comes to the handler students, it's them and that dog, and so they don't necessarily have the opportunity to suck as much. And then a lot of times what you'll see is because a lot of our handlers that come through are law enforcement officers, these agencies aren't going to send the worst guy. They're going to send,
Yeah.
That's a special task. It's like being, it's like getting to go to airborne school or getting to go to ranger school or something along those lines. It's a special unit in a lot of these police agencies or law enforcement agencies. So those guys are pretty much 99% of the time they're squared away. And so from our handler side of things, working specifically with a dog, you're not going to see those guys fail, just because those guys are the ones that are squared away most of the time.
And that was one of my questions that I had at the very, very, very beginning. That as you continue to talk and explain what you did and what the program is, one of my questions was, that initially when I first thought about it, I was like, so this is just a class I can go there, take a dog, get a dog, and I can just be anybody. But and then the question was, it was answered that, these people are vetted. These people are, already known to be decent human beings in law enforcement or government or military and stuff like that. So
And
yeah.
and that is true in a sense. I guess you can kind of, if you wanted to, play the system, but you're just going to spend 6 weeks with us, and in the contract that you sign at the end of the 6 weeks, if you don't pass your certification, or we don't feel like you uh are going to treat this dog in a fair manner, or you're going to do the proper things to care for this animal, we'll take the dog from you. And you'll fail the course. And I haven't personally seen it happen, but it is in your contract that you sign when you get the dog that, ultimately it's our decision before you leave that whether you're going to take him or not, or him or her, the dog. And you also have to still pass the course. So you're kind of being vetted through that 6 weeks, as well as leading up to you getting there. You're gonna,
Yeah.
our staff's gonna have conversations with you and what your goals are and what your plans are as well, even as a veteran coming through the handler course. And then, we also offer a lot of times, not always, but we offer opportunities for those handlers too. So we've got contracts that come, people call us and like, hey, I need a drug dog handler at this private school in such and such. And so we build some contracts as well.
And you actually brought up another question in the middle of what you were just talking about when you said dog, he or her, he or her. In your line of work, is there a specific, is a male or female, depending on what they're doing? And I don't mean it to sound funny in any way, shape, or form, but is a male dog versus a female dog, are they equal in everything? Or, from your experience, or are they equal, or do they are better in, tracking or apprehension or, things like that, or
You
aggression?
know, ultimately, it's not so much male or female. It is very much the drives that the dogs have. I can think of a male dog right now that isn't very good at his job. He's a great pet, but he's just not the best fit for what we want him to be. And then I can think of a female who's an awesome, same kind of dog that is awesome at what she's doing and crushing it. And so it really just depends on the dogs. Um, that's one thing as a trainer that we're evaluating before we even purchase a dog. I will say the majority of what we get is males. But like my dog is a female German Shepherd. And so she just has the right drives to do what I need her to do. But the majority of what we bring in is male. Take that for what you will.
No, I mean, you answered it greatly. I mean, that's kind of what I assumed, but I know growing up as a kid back home in Pennsylvania, I wasn't, my dad had dogs, but they were primarily labs, but, it was people, friends of the family and that would go out hunting or pheasant or grouse or rabbit, they'd have beagles or labs or, duck hunting or goose hunting and stuff like that. And they all gravitated towards female dogs because they all said they had a tendency to hunt harder, to work harder, where the males just wanted to be, yeah, I'll do it as long as I want to, until you get on my case about it. But, I assume a lot of that has to do with breed and training and stuff like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't. That's kind of I don't want to
Apples
take.
and oranges.
Well, not necessarily apples and oranges. I would say that's probably like kind of a little old wives' tale, if you will.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say that there is. It really just depends on the dog whether they're going to do it or not. I don't think that, I don't think that there's any science backing that males are better than females or females are better than males. And a lot of
Yeah.
that stuff, it's more of what are their drives and what are, how can we channel those drives in a way that we want them to work.
I've got 3 dogs, and all 3 dogs have different personalities.
Oh yeah, and
All
they're
3 dogs have their own things that they do, or what they're good at, or learning rate. From the time they were a puppy to now. They're all obedient. Although you heard them being stupid there a while ago, because the one saw a squirrel out back, and he's like, I can't contain myself. But it was but I do know that they're just like human beings. And dogs are, I don't care how old they get, ultimately always like puppies,
well,
and
and so it's funny
it's
you
being
say
able to
that.
contain that puppy.
Yeah, so it's actually kind of funny you say that. Think about a dog fully grown, you call it six. My dog's 6, so we'll talk about a 6-year-old dog. Their mental capacity is at most, they say, between a 2 and a 7-year-old. So even as a fully grown dog, they're always a kid, a human kid.
Wow. That's very interesting.
They
Yeah,
never grow
I
up.
did.
They get to stay kids forever, which is our
Yeah,
topic tonight, right?
that is true. That is a great segue. I should hire you, Brandon, because you do better segues than I do. That was pretty good.
I've done a few of these podcasts.
Is that right? Yeah, you've probably done more than I have. I don't know. But yeah, so being a kid, right? So obviously the dogs, they know how to be kids, that's for sure. And then I think Mike, you were the one that kind of brought this up this week, right? The topic of being the lost art of being a kid. Why don't you go ahead and share a little bit of your thoughts on it?
Oh, it kind of stemmed back to I can't remember the comedian's name. I've seen him before. I think it was something you posted. He was
Oh,
talking about somebody told him, he said, "Oh, you take a mason jar and put dry ice and it'll explode, put the lid on." And he's like, "Where do I get dry ice?" He said, "The ice cream man." So he ran out to the ice cream man and said, "Hey, do you have dry ice?" He's like, "Yeah, what do you want it for?" He goes, "Well, see, if I put it in this jar and put the lid on it, it'll explode." He goes, "Here's your dry ice." And it was just the stupid stuff, we did as a kid. It was just funny to me. That's like, how the heck did we survive some of the stupid stuff? And I shared a post in the group chat of the BB gun stuff. We used to sit. I kind of exaggerated at the tail end, but it's a true story still. So let me explain. We used to sit there probably, it wasn't an air pump BB gun. It was just the spring loaded, like, the Red Ryder, like from Christmas Story, the Daisy, it was hard enough to hurt, but we would sit there and it's like, okay, you stand over there, let me shoot you in the chest or something like that. And if it hurts, or how long can you take it? Or, we keep getting closer and closer and closer and closer. So you're like, stop. It's like, oh man, do that again. Okay, do it again, do it again. It's like, give it to me. And the story isn't necessarily funny, but my dad's cousin, and I remember as a kid going to all the family reunions. And it's actually kind of where I learned this story to do this. And I learned it from my dad, which he then realized. He's like, "Why the hell are you doing it?" I was like, "Well, shit, Dad, you were talking about it at the family reunion." But I was a kid, and it was his cousin Jimmy. Well, they were doing the same damn thing, and it was like 6 or 7 of them all doing it, and buddies and cousins, back home where they grew up. The families all stayed in a general area. It was within 5-6 miles of each other, but all the cousins hung out and played and did stuff like that. But all of a sudden, Jimmy got shot in the eyeball, and everybody took off running for home and left poor Jimmy there. And next thing you know, it was the banging on the door, or the ring, 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 ring. It's like, you have a call from, so and so, and it's like, so and so shot Jimmy in the eye. Jimmy survived, but Jimmy had a wonky eye from this point on. So from that point on, he was always Crazy Eyed Jimmy, and that's how I knew him, is Crazy Eyed Jimmy. And he didn't. It's like, my life, I didn't die. It was just one of those things. But it was just the crazy stuff we did as kids. Stuff like that, or dangerous toys like lawn darts and crap like that, or even now most people think you're going to die. But my wife looked out the window the other day when she was home, and I was changing out the sprinkler, and I took it off and I had the water run. I was like, boop, 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 boop. She goes, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I was thirsty." She goes, "We have water in the house, right?" I'm like, "Well, it's the same water I'm paying for out here." So,
that is a good point though. Growing up, I used to, and I'm going to throw this out there, Brandon. So we used to go out in the back pasture and play Army. That's what I wanted to do growing up, but I decided, I better go on to a different place like the Marine Corps. But I did. I played Army, when I was younger, and we used to set up GI Joes in the backyard and stuff. And then we always saved our firecrackers, and then we would light them and then throw them like a grenade and try to blow up all the GI Joes and stuff like that. That was always fun. Or riding bikes, all over town and doing stunts and doing stupid things. That was always fun as well. I know Vic, me and you rode bikes, and we had a couple of crashes together. It was good times. Brandon, what did you do growing up?
First of all,
You played.
nobody ever played Marine. I just want to throw that out there. Nobody ever played Marine. You always played Army.
Oh man.
I guess as a kid growing up.
Sorry, I had to mute myself because I didn't want to say anything bad.
You're not gonna hurt my feelings, I promise. No, one of the kind of childhood kind of go back to is just playing like manhunt, things like that, where it was just pitch black in the woods. I'm from Florida originally, and so just running through the woods and the middle of the night playing manhunt, nobody can see anybody, and you run into your friend and one of you's got a black eye, the other one's got a busted lip. Those were definitely the lost memories of being a kid, is just not caring.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Mark, what about you? What did you do when you were younger?
Well, we did the BB gun thing like Mike was talking about, but growing up on a farm, we had the hay mows, so we have build forts out of the hay bales and go back and forth across the hay mow. But also we jump on our ponies or horses and with the BB guns, we'd be riding and shooting, like cowboys and Indians and and everything like that.
You'd be riding like John Wayne when he says,
Yeah.
fill your hands,
Fill your
you
hands,
son of
you-
a bitch. Yeah, good old John Wayne.
Yeah.
That's a good movie.
Yep. But
I knew that would get
and
Mike
usually
back
if you're
on
going to
there.
hit anything, you're going to hit the horse or a pony, and so that causes its own catastrophe there because they think it's like a bee sting or something like that, so they go wild, throw you
Yeah.
off.
So
But the same thing, like being a
does,
child, you just if like I said, grow up on the farm. If we didn't have work, we were actually doing, like I said, we just grabbed the ponies, the BB guns or rifles when you get a little older, shotgun or depending on what season it was in, and just take off. Go, because we had farmland, timberland. We go take fishing poles, go fishing, and then just come back later in the night for the evening chores.
yeah.
Yeah, and
And
that's
everybody had to
stuff
be,
we would do is take the BB guns or the 22s or and there was never any question. But now you couldn't even possibly think of doing that. It depends on where you're at. Granted, in Gainesville, Georgia, that's probably not a good thing to go out with the BB guns, Brandon, and
Yeah.
But
What, like at our high school parking lot, there was a truck, there was a gun rack with shotgun and rifle in it, loaded. And
Yeah,
and the
that was
show
teachers
each other
actually asked.
the new
The
knife.
teacher actually
Yeah,
asked
exactly.
about if you got a new gun. They wanted to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are a little bit older than I am, I'm assuming, so we definitely weren't bringing guns around school when I was there. But I definitely grew up in the country, and everybody had some sort of gun, or grew up around BB guns and things like that. So I do get a lot of it, but we weren't allowed to bring them to school, that's for sure.
well, I remember them being in the back of the trucks on the rack. I think my one of my first vehicles had a gun rack in the back of it. And I remember getting my 30-30 from my dad for Christmas. And I begged him. I was like, take me out. Let me go shoot it. Take me out. Let me go shoot it. And he finally got tired of hearing it, and he tells me, just take it, go out in the woods, just don't shoot yourself, don't shoot anybody else. It was a 30 gauge, not a 30 gauge. And I go out and, I'm all excited. I get it ready and I put it up and it's like, come play me. And about ripped my shoulder off. And I come, crawling back to the house crying. And my dad's over there laughing, pointing at me. It got a kick, doesn't it? I was like, yeah, it does. It does. Yeah. So that was gun safety back then. It was a good time. That's
Yeah,
how Marines do it.
I had to learn the hard way about gun safety I think I was 14, 15 maybe. And it was during the summer, but I had gotten it was like a Crossman or a Daisy pump BB gun, and I was out back in my porch out in the back of my parents' house, and I had hung like milk jugs down in the woods off of tree limbs, and had Coke cans stuck on branches, and I'd be like ting ting ting, just going to town, and it shot pellets or BBs, and pellets were expensive, so I didn't get a lot of pellets, but you can buy the tube of BBs, they roll everywhere. Be careful, and I could fill it up and sit there. And finally, one day I was like, man, it said 3 pumps. So I'm like, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I was like, oh, that's a little better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that's a little better. And I pulled it back, and I was like, it's stuck. Pushed a little lever back up and loaded it. And I was like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'm sitting there and go to shoot, and it wouldn't go off. And I'm like,
oh no.
And I put it on safe. Now, and I was like, I pulled it out and I pulled it back, and I was like, what the hell's going on here? And the BB released because I had a little magnet on the end of it. The BB released off the slide. So I'm like this. You probably can't see my hand, but I'm literally shaking the rifle over top of my hand. Well, my thumb's over here, hits the safety, and the damn thing goes off into my hand.
Nice.
And I'm like, oh, I'm screaming and yelling and hollering, drop the gun. And I go running at my house. And my dad's like, what happened? I was like, BB gun went off in my hand. He goes, you dumbass, like that. And I was like, and he never swore. And I mean, I got one finger going this way. I got another finger going that way. It was like I was doing a reverse, Dr. Spock Romulan thing or something like that, and he had a big heavy earth magnet he used for fishing. He would throw in like if the anchor or something happened, or and he's like, let me go get that magnet. He's put it on my hand. And he goes, that'll pull him out. And I'm like, it ain't pulling him out. It ain't pulling him out. And we were supposed to go fishing that Sunday. And he's like, we're going fishing. I'm like, Dad, I can't go fishing. He goes, we're going fishing. So we go out in the lake on the boat, and I'm like trying to fish, and I'm miserable. And finally he's like, let's just go. Let's go home. Get home, and my hands all swelled up and fat. And my mother's just going bonkers about it. She's fit to be tied. And she goes, he should have gone to the hospital. And he goes, he would have gone to the hospital if he wasn't a dumbass. And the whole time I'm just like, just take me to the hospital. And he finally takes me to the emergency room. We were there, it was like 8 or 9 hours going there. My dad didn't want to take me because it was a gunshot. And it was going to get
was
reported.
A BB gun, though.
It was going to get reported. And he did not want to take me, but my mother's like, you have got to take him. And finally I get there, and they're like, well, what is it? Well, of course, they're sticking probes in it and digging around. I'm like, stop, and I'm screaming and yelling. They're injecting it and trying to numb it, and they're digging. Finally x-ray it, and they're like, hey, there's 2 BBs in there? And I was like, well, I didn't know, but okay. And one was lodged behind my knuckle and over here. And
oh my God.
All of a sudden, they're all there doing it. There's calls going off in the emergency room. and they all go running out. And like 3 hours later, they come back in, and it's like, what are you guys doing? And I'm laying here with forceps and stuff stuck in my hand with it laying out. I'm like, okay. And some kid came in, was running a chainsaw that shouldn't have been running a chainsaw,
Oh
and
no.
basically cut his damn leg off in the process. So that was a little more important than the BB gun wound, at that point. So they started digging again, and then, the Novocaine or whatever it wore off. And finally, it was some doctor came in and it's like, well, quit x-raying and take them into the fluoroscan so they can see it. It's like the live x-ray where they can look at it. And they're digging and digging and digging and digging, and my fingers are going this way, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And finally, it was a radiologist tech. She goes, what if we just cut a slit on the backside of his hand and a knuckle? They'll just pop right out. And the doctor's like, there's no damn way. They are not coming out. She goes, well, what do we have to, what's it going to hurt? He flips my hand over and just goes, thump, pushes my hand, and I go, beep, beep. Both the BBs just fell right out,
Oh wow.
And my dad looked at me and goes, if I'd have known it was that damn easy, I would have done that at home, And he goes, you'll never get a driver's license. You think I'm going to sign for you to get a driver's license? You'll never get a driver's license. I'm like, okay, I'm not getting a driver's license.
Oh man. That was
BB
good.
gun went up and got hid. And like a week later, I was out back on tink, 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 with a big bandaged up hand. I had a better support at that point. I could really get wrapped up in it, And
Yeah. Yeah. I bet you weren't shooting yourself in the hand anymore though.
no, that was the last time. That was gun safety at that point was paramount.
Yeah.
That's what I always told my kids. I said, yeah, you never been shot. Yeah, I was never shot with a high powered round or anything like that. But my son never understood that until he was old enough, and it was sure as hell wasn't something I was going to tell that story to my daughter or son when they were younger. They were 18, 19 or whatever. And my wife knew the
Yeah.
story, and she goes, you never heard a story about how your dad shot himself. And of course, they're like, what, looking at me. So I had to tell the story,
That's
and my
good
dad's
stuff.
like, I could just see Papa. Papa was probably just going off on you and didn't talk to you in a month. I said, yeah, talk about 3 months he didn't talk to me.
Oh, it's good stuff. All right. Any other good stories as we talk about being a kid here?
Well, I also grew up in Florida, and I had one toy when I was a
No,
kid.
but they didn't.
It was outside. That was my toy. Go play outside. Go
Yep.
play outside. Go play outside. Go play outside. And
Yeah.
when we first moved to Florida, we weren't even we didn't have enough money for the Matchbox cars. So I'd go out in my backyard and I'd dig up dirt clods and I'd carve them into cars. And that's what that was my first toy as a kid was dirt clod cars. But back then also we lived about 3 miles from the beach, and at this point I'm like 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old. We left Florida when I after fifth grade year to come to Oklahoma in sixth grade. But like my fifth grade year, all summer long, every day for several hours, me and my best friend Jeff Mullen, we would ride our bicycles from our houses. He lived about a block and a half away from me. We would ride our bikes 3 miles to the beach and play at the beach by ourselves all the time, like every day. And then we'd ride back home. We lived on the Gulf of Mexico, Fort Walton Beach. But we would like ride to the beach, play at the beach by ourselves, completely unsupervised. And then when the street lights came on, ride home. Nowadays, like my daughter's got mace on her keychain. She's 17 years old, and I don't even like her going out after dark. It's like, come on. It's not the same anymore. It's not the same.
But could it be the same? That's a good question.
I don't think it can at this point.
Not in today's world, no.
There's perversions have become too commonplace. I'll say that. Because now there's such an acceptance of alternate lifestyles and perversions. You can't call them pedophiles anymore. They're a minor attracted people, because we have to like redefine everything. So like
right.
We'll never be like that again. Our society will never be like that ever again, which is
Well, I
unfortunate.
think it's always been like that. We just didn't know that.
Maybe.
You know, there's always been criminals. There's always been pedophiles. There's always been, but we just didn't know it. We didn't have access to the information to know it.
We didn't have the
You
social
know,
media and shit like that we
yeah.
have today.
But you know,
Yeah.
that's something too. And this isn't, you know, the lost art of being a child. But you know, talking about social media in today's world and stuff like that, you know, Krista, I apologize for saying this, but it has nothing to do with you. The best thing I had as a kid in the early '80s was hoping to find a Playboy magazine somewhere. You know, that was my access to what it was to be an adult or pornography. Now, unless you have parents,
Well,
that
you
actually
couldn't find one
limit
because I had them all. So, you know, I mean,
it. Hey. But anyways, now everything you want is right here. I mean, it doesn't. I can't believe you, Krista. You lost
I'm kidding.
points with me. Krista was looking at all the porn and everything, and it's like,
no, Ron said, you know, one little boy in the neighborhood had one, and
oh,
they were like at so and so's house, and they would all run to his house, and he would get them, and they would run to like the little empty square lot, you know, that was building, and run and hide in the woods and find them. We talked about that. I was like, we would sneak out, not sneak out. We would go out, we'd get our Kool-Aid, and then we'd run to the blank lot that was empty and build forts, you know, and pick blackberries and take them to Miss Cunningham's house, and she'd bake a pie, and then we would try to maybe make it home if we didn't get lost in the woods. And, you know, Limitless Chester, the twins around there, would throw dirt balls at us. You know, we'd ride our bikes around and crash, and we didn't wear helmets and everything else, you know, but I'm the same age as the guy down here in the corner, Mr. O'Loughlin, you know. So, but you know, and yeah, and one kid had a Playboy that he got from his father, you know, Larry Lester's, you know, dad, that was under the toilet, under the sink, you know, but that was the innocent times, you know, that was, you know,
yeah.
but yeah. So,
well, that's my
and we
point.
Drank out of the water
so
hose.
accessible now. Now you have young kids that have that ability to look everything and anything up. In a social media, the scourge of the earth? I don't necessarily think so, but I think it's how it's managed in the internet. And a lot of that still has to do with parents, still have to be parents. And I think that's a lost art in itself that, you know, I don't know, Brandon, are you a parent?
I've got 3 little girls, yes, sir.
Yeah. That's a scary world right there, dude. You got 3 little girls.
Yep.
No, it's not. That's a good thing. But it is a scary feeling.
I've got more girls than I have kids.
Yeah. Well, I don't know you as a person. I don't know your background other than you're obviously a good dog handler. But I'm assuming you're no different than I was as a teenager or as a young kid, that, you know, teenage girl is a daughter is a scary thing. And that's one thing I always thought about with my daughter.
I dread the day my daughters bring home someone that I was as a teenage boy.
Hey, at least you admit it.
I was a shithead. I know I was a shithead. So
don't worry, Krista was a shithead too. She was bad. All the boys had to run from her. So since she had all the porn.
That was Kristen. Kristen had the porn.
Yeah. Kristen, yes, Kristen.
Yeah.
Her alter ego.
Oh man.
We had a cassette recorder, you know, where you push play record, and you had to hold both buttons.
Yeah.
Down and be really quiet, you know, hold up the microphone to the radio. And I mean, those were the good old days. 8 tracks with Sonny and Cher and the Osmond Brothers. I mean, it was.
Whew.
So you were dubbing porn from one.
We talked about that.
See, one
Skylark that I drove to Alabama. What?
I'm sorry, I was making a joke. I said, so you were You were dubbing porn from one cassette to the other cassette, or what? You had like dual cassettes?
No, let's move from the board. Let's
Oh
move
my
from that.
God.
I think
Uh,
Mark got offended and he left.
Yeah. Yeah. He said his internet went down. So,
uh,
all right. I think with
well.
that,
No, we talked about the Buick Skyline talking.
Yes.
I had a quick question for Brandon, actually. One quick question. You said most of your clients, if that's okay, AJ,
yeah, go ahead. Keep going. Yeah, that's good.
can I ask him a quick question?
Yeah,
You said most
please.
of your clients are veterans, but do you get any clients that come through? You mentioned about the peanuts, like you had like one dog you trained to, detect peanuts. I know, like, do you get any clients that come through with disabilities or special needs sometimes? Do you get individuals maybe that come through that you train a special dog for that? Or I know like the American Disabilities Act, they do special dogs sometimes with that, with any clients like that?
Yeah, and we actually have an individual. He is disabled from. He's like fully disabled from his waist down and partially disabled from his neck down. His
Mhm.
name is Josh. He's actually a one of our handlers as well. And
Mhm.
so he has a dog that he has had trained to detect explosives as well as an apprehension dog. But
Mhm.
he is the head of our special needs dogs, our service dogs. And so yeah, we do some. It's it's hit or miss. We don't do a lot of them, but we will. We'll train service dogs as well.
Okay. Kind of wondered. So
Very cool.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, hey, we're hitting about
thanks. I
that
appreciate
hour
it.
mark. So we can go ahead and start wrapping up here. But Brandon, thanks for coming on. If you have anything else you'd like to say before we close out here, this is your opportunity. Go ahead. You got the floor.
Yeah, no, I just appreciate you guys for having me on. Thanks for reaching out. I'm glad we were able to link up for this opportunity. And then if I may, give us a follow on Custom Canine Unlimited on Instagram. All social media platforms is going to be Custom Canine Unlimited. And like I said, I appreciate you guys for having us on. If you're ever in the Georgia area, let me know.
Sounds good. Hey, also, Brandon, I'm gonna have to have you and your other partner on. I think there was a Marine veteran that works there with you as well.
Yeah,
But
Simon.
have you
Yeah.
guys on sometime to tell your veteran story. So we need to schedule something like that in the near future. But we'll get you on here if you're willing to do it.
Yeah,
But with
absolutely. I originally thought that that's kind of what this was a be,
oh, really?
yeah, so I wasn't 100% sure. But yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't have an issue with that at all.
All right. Well, we'll definitely get you scheduled for that then for sure. Before I close out, Vic, Mike, Krista, you want to say anything?
No, I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
I had a good time, Brandon. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Sorry if we offended you or we were,
Not at all. Not
we
at
have to
all.
apologize for Krista sometimes. So
Vic, go
So for
ahead.
the Viaje zombie antidote here, it started off as a nice, smooth, kind of like even keel cigar. As it got closer to the end, it got more and more complex. A few flavors of chocolate, but mostly like a little bit of licorice in there, which I don't really care for. So I'd probably give this like 3.5, maybe 4 out of 5. But yeah, it's not a bad cigar. At the price point, it's like $9 for the cigar. So.
All right. Well, awesome. Thanks, Vic. I appreciate that. I'm sure everybody else out there appreciates you giving these reviews. Hopefully, you get sponsored soon by some cigar company out there, and we can all smoke a cigar with you. Something
Yeah.
like that would be pretty cool.
Someday.
Uh, all right, to everybody out there that's listening, remember that one veteran life loss is one too many. We care about you. This month just happens to be Veteran Suicide and PTSD Awareness Month. So very near and dear to our hearts here. But remember, you can always reach out. You can dial 988, press option 1. You can also text 838-255, or you can go to veteranscrisisline.net and click on that chat icon. But any of those options are going to get you in contact with somebody that can help you out. I care about you. I know everybody else here cares about you. So please, please, please go get the help that you need. To the podcast crew, thanks for hanging out. Brandon, thank you. I appreciate it. To everybody out there, stay motivated and change your socks.